We're gonna go ahead and get started. We've got attendees still coming in. Welcome everybody. Appreciate you being here. And like I said, this has been some interesting stuff happening here in the last year. Probably got some interesting things coming up as we move forward into 2025. So, a couple things just want to go over before we really get started. I want to let everybody know that we are putting this on just because we're getting questions from a lot of people these days, just on, what are the things that we ultimately need to be looking out for as far as all of these new issues in cybersecurity. Lots of talks about artificial intelligence, the overall increase in cybercrime, and what we want to do is just kind of do a beginning of the year review, give some predictions from where what our stance is on the matter, give you guys some data to really reflect on and go over, as well as give you guys some actionable steps that you can do. If you're new here, I just want to let you know this is in no ways a sales pitch by any means. We really want to provide some good information for everybody. Choose to do with it as you wish. We all here at Grit have a very strong heart for small to mid-sized businesses, and there's a strategic attack going on really going on right now toward the SMB market. And so for us today, what we want to do is we just want to make sure that we're doing our part for our community and giving you guys the ammo that you need to stay safe out there. So um, quick agenda, just kind of what we're going to be covering today. Like I already stated, going to be covering just the topics of what is the current state of the cybersecurity landscape. What are some trends that we can kind of predict based on events that happened last year and some more recent things that are in development over the last several months? We're going to be looking at having a strong conversation on just the role of artificial intelligence. What is it really? How is it coming into play with in regards to cybersecurity? And then we're just going to look at the simple, practical solutions to help keep businesses safe. We'll have some time at the end for some Q&A, talk about next steps if need be. But I will make sure that we stay on time, respect everybody's time, and we'll go ahead and get to it here. So starting off with just a quick intro on just who I am. My name's Matt. I'm head of sales marketing over here. Head of marketing over here. I was formerly working as a sales and marketing manager for Grit. Just moved over to this position in the beginning of this year. I've also held, another role as an account manager here as well. I've been here for about 7 years. Just like Grit has a passion for small businesses, I have a passion for small business. I really believe in small business leaders. Me and my wife, we always try to shop local anytime we can and support our communities. And I have such a fascination with just cybersecurity, being in the IT space for the last 7 years. Prior to that, I've got an audio, video, and kind of commercial background. I did do about a 3-year stint and working in Apple retail, prior to that. So I've always been in technology. And being with Grit and being in this world and having the resources that we have and just the amazing team that we have here, it's been great just to really get into the world of cybersecurity, and it's just fascinating. It just how it works, what the tools and stuff that put into place are obviously really neat, but just the world of hackers, just the underground world and how things work, I think is just amazing. And so I've been speaking publicly about it for the last few years, been at several different events and been talking about this. I'm also a host for the Gritty Business Podcast. So this last year, Grits launched a Gritty Business Podcast. Go ahead and check it out. It's on YouTube. You can just go ahead and put a search for that. Talking with small and mid-sized businesses all throughout the Michigan community. So looking at things like, we obviously talk about technology, but we also are talking things about just, what are some clear leadership aspects that, that really make for successful businesses. I had a guest on talking about, just what they do, how they hire people, things about remote work, all of those things. It's a great thing, and it's all local as well. So I think you might enjoy that. So definitely check that out. And then just on a personal note, outside of grit, I am actually a practicing blacksmith and knife maker. So some people are surprised by that. Um, it's a great creative outlet for me, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. So it's I live one foot into the future with all this stuff in cybersecurity, and I like to, it brings some simplicity in my life to go back and when you're making tools and things like that. So without further ado, enough about me. Um, there we go. Whoops, moving way ahead here. There we go. All right. So what can we expect in 2025? I think that's kind of the big question a lot of people are asking. What do we got to look out for? Um, let's take a quick look back real quick. And this is just some information that I found very interesting out of the Verizon data breach report. Verizon does a report, basically a yearly report at this point, where they really investigate everything that goes into the latest breaches that we see on a global scale. No surprise, we've seen, in various different ways, and probably you've heard as well that there's a rise in cybersecurity, breaches and issues and things like that across the board, and there's a lot of reasons for this. One of the things that's been standing out is that just the frequency of these things, as well as just the surge in ransomware cases, and also the new appearance of these different extortion attacks that we have been seeing over the course of really the last few years. It used to be that really ransomware was the end game. And for those of you that are not familiar with ransomware, it's a form of malicious, malware that basically comes in, and if it gets into a computer, it completely encrypts all of the user's data. And the only way to get that data back is either to decrypt it using a key that the attacker, supplies you after you pay a specific amount to get that key, or you basically restore from a backup. But most cases, it was always ransomware was really the end game. Get in there, cripple the business, hold things ransom, and then get your ransom and leave. What we've seen is just a more strategic attack coming with these different extortion attacks, where they are actually sitting on a network for a very long time, and they're really planning out, what is going to be the next step, and how they're going to get the maximum damage done to a business. And they're finding things out like people's personal information, financial statements, social security numbers, any proprietary data, top secret stuff, all of that, and basically using ransomware as a tool to cripple the business, but then also use the the people's data basically against them, saying we're going to publish this out onto the dark web or to the public web, and basically allow for these people to buy it or purchase it or get it for free unless you pay a ransom. So extortion along with ransomware in total is actually still on the rise, and it's grown substantially. So the rise of this is just it's very interesting to see the tactics kind of shift a little bit. It seemed like ransomware in itself might have plateaued a little bit over the last few years, but really the two together is really what we're starting to see. So, just in our own home, in our backyard, you probably heard of some of the more recent attacks to other businesses. These were three that really stuck out to me that I thought were at least worth taking mention. In these are the ones that are reported. There's hundreds of different things that are going on in our own community all the time, but this is the stuff that obviously was more newsworthy. We saw attack within Wayne County. They had issues with I think all of their public facing websites and stuff were all taken down. Had some issues with with a lot of financial transactions, things like that. I think their case management system was also attacked. McLaren Healthcare. This one was pretty big because they were attacked actually back in 2023, and then again in August. There was a group of known hackers. They go by the name Black Cat, and basically took credit for the attack. And allegedly left with about 6 terabytes of data. So not only was ransomware, deployed into the organization, we also saw that a lot of personal, patient information was also potentially stolen as well. So definitely one to look into. And then of course, Ascension system back in May was also attacked. But again, across the board, it's not just something we hear on the news about something far away or a big organization. We're seeing things more closer and closer to home. And I can remember even just 5 years ago that it seemed like for the most part, you'd hear about things every once in a while, but not at the frequency that we're hearing today. And based on data that we just looked at, and as well as just some of the other reports that we're seeing, it's definitely becoming more of a problem, and it's increasing. The methods that we still see, and this is from other IT experts as well as just what we've seen here at Grit, is phishing is still one of the big major factors in this. More specifically, spear phishing, where they're really targeting specific individuals. Again, ransomware is being used as the means to cripple that business to stop those operations. We're still seeing and talking with people that that are come to us for help, saying they got in somehow, and we find that there's a lot of unpatched still vulnerabilities out there. Still people running Windows 7 machines, outdated software, legacy software, custom made software that doesn't have any type of means to be updated or patched for whatever reason. So we've seen that. And still just the practices of social engineering, getting people to divulge that sensitive information. We're seeing more and more of these man-in-the-middle attacks, when there's the process of a financial transaction going on, where the attacker knows that there's going to be a large sum of money transferred. They'll work inject themselves into the conversation between a client and a vendor, and work to transfer money to a wrong bank account or steal information, whatever. So we are seeing still a lot of that. And of course, just overall hygiene, things like poor password policies, unsecure remote work sessions, RDP, a lack still of multi-factor authentication, which I still can't believe, but I've still have talked with people in this last year that they're like, oh, I really don't want to have multi-factor. You really need multi-factor authentication. It needs to be something that you need to have in your organization for the obvious reasons here. One of the things that we've really done as an organization is we've really to tackle this outside of our own peer network and the other resources that we have to deploy the types of tools and systems and strategies at Grit, is we've started to really engage even our local law enforcement. One of the things that we've done in the last few years is we've held a couple different events with the Michigan State Police, and really just opening up the table for discussion for everybody. And it's been really interesting to see the types of things that they are seeing along with what we've seen, and just comparing notes and making ourselves available to learn, and to also just work to ensure that the things that we're putting in place for people are correct, and as well as that we know what needs to happen when it comes this type of stuff, when it comes to when it comes to law enforcement. An event this last year, we had one of the things that really stuck out to us was not that phishing still works, because it does, but just the frequency of things and the increase of phishing that we're seeing across the board. One of the interesting stats that they came out with, and this is from their own data set, they were able to publish and let people know that basically of total users that an organization has, the average user, if they receive 20 phishing emails, they will usually click on at least one of those. Of those clicked, 25% happened within the first 10 minutes, 50% within the first hour, and 90% within the first 24 hours. And with all this other stuff about AI and all those things, I am here to tell you that phishing is still one of the main things that are happening to organizations, even in early 2025, where we're in today. It is still one of the main things of how attackers are getting into a business or organization. They also let us know that there is a strategic target within 5 industries, and this is in no particular order, but we are seeing strategic breaches within real estate, construction, government, insurance, and finance. So if you're in one of those, excuse me, if you're in one of those, this is just so you know, you've got a target on your back. The other thing to know too is that if you work with any of these type of industries, there is always the potential of having a more, it could be potentially be more problematic because there is a strategic targeting going on with these 5 different industries. So overall, just kind of back to the slide, like why the rise? Why are we seeing this rise and happening? And I think a lot of you probably know some of the answers to this. And if you want, you can put into the chat that, hey, there's there was an increase in, remote work. We all had to deal everything that was going on during the whole COVID era where we had to work remotely. A lot of businesses, had to adapt to new systems in that time, using, video conferencing and using cloud-based, software that we've never used before or never was set up appropriately for, in order to, keep business, running. We had to get to it very, very fast. So attackers obviously saw an opportunity and definitely, exploited that. That's one of the big reasons that we saw, a significant rise in there. And of course, one of some of the biggest things that we saw, more recently too, was the adoption of some new tools, artificial intelligence, and that is another big reason, that we saw some significant, rise in these types of attacks as well. So again, main contributors, increased digitization, excuse me, just all the cloud tools and stuff that we've adapted. A lot of people got excited because they saw that not only did we adapt quickly to that, but there was a lot of benefits to this hybrid remote work. But again, we saw a lot of weak cybersecurity because of it too. We moved into it very, very fast. A lot of IT, internal IT folks, as well as, even IT providers, had to really work very hard in order to come up with, strategic plans and ensure that, these new solutions that were adapted very quickly, that there were no gaps. And a lot of them did have gaps. So putting things in, appropriately along with firewalls, multi-factor authentication, all of that was all part of that. So some of the major contributing factors that we saw. And of course, like what we're seeing in the news, big talks about artificial intelligence, and that this is another big thing that is being, it should be used for good, but unfortunately it's being used, in inappropriate ways and causing a lot of havoc for a lot of people. I do want to focus on this because it is something that we have seen an exponential growth in just in many ways, in many facets. Talking specifically as a weapon for cybercrime, the amount of increase, and as you can see by the number right there, we've seen almost it's over a 1,200% increase since the introduction of ChatGPT. And if you're not familiar with when ChatGPT came out, it came out in November of 2022. So we've seen over 1,000% increase in the types of attacks the types of phishing attacks. And that's just absolutely amazing when you think about it. Over a 1,200% increase in just people without any training whatsoever are being able to make these, sophisticated attacks. What's crazy about ChatGPT, and I'm sure a lot of you have tried, this out or some other AI models out there, is that you can have a conversation with it. It's really different to where you can put in, a simple, message. You can be, you can have it translate into any language in the world. It's absolutely, amazing. People are using it for coding and for strategic problem solving. So as it's a great tool for businesses as they've progressed, and it's made people, more competitive. It's really helped them take their data and allow them to really get a better picture of how things work, or to help troubleshoot a problem, all that type of stuff. What what is happening is groups and organizations, hacker groups and organizations are really using this as a weapon against the small to mid-sized business. What it's done is really lowered the barriers for a lot of people. Or organizations that that run in the dark web, and these groups that are all of these different hacking groups. They probably had a lot of skills in creating these types of phishing campaigns and even creating malware, but they got exponentially better because of programs like ChatGPT. And the big thing about this is that this has increased the frequency. Again, the number, that 1,200 percent number, it's increased the scale of and speed of which these campaigns have been done in previous years. Overall, I mean, the volume of threats is more than what the typical human can actually handle. Now we've got tools and stuff in place to really grab a lot of this, which is great. But every day things are getting more sophisticated. They're getting better. They're getting faster. And the truth is that these AI programs, they're smarter than you. They're a lot faster than you, and just regular traditional security methods, manual security methods that we're running today, they're going to outpace us really, really fast. And that's where we really need to look down the line and say, what does this mean as we move into the future, as people continue to adapt these types of programs? One of the things that we've even seen is just the use of the standard ChatGPT program, where they use a jailbreak or a specific prompt. So basically, what happens is if you were to go into ChatGPT today and say, "Hey, can you design a code of can you basically run a Python script, for example, and make it so it's a version of ransomware," it'll stop you and say that's that's inappropriate. We're not going to do that. But what they found is that with essentially what they call a jailbreak, there's ways to get around the censorship that's built into ChatGPT, and this has been going on since the program came out back in November 2022. Now, there's been updates and things like that as this progresses, but hackers are using just the regular version of ChatGPT and using it for different nefarious acts, which is pretty crazy. So just because it might be from a legitimate company, it doesn't mean that people are using it in ways to inflict harm onto different organizations. We've even seen actually AI'd, just actually like artificial intelligence programs. One in particular was called Worm GPT. It was around for a little while, and then it's no longer around. This is a screenshot actually from the dark web on the hack forums. It was a Chat GPT variant where it was used for pretty much just everything that goes into cybercrime, if you can believe that. It basically had all of the restrictions and limitations that were put in place, basically the fail safes that were put in place, and hackers just went nuts with it. They made everything from strategic, and custom malware to very sophisticated, phishing campaigns. They used it as a tool to actually teach them specific, tactics and things like that. Used it in place of conversations, and really did quite a bit of damage with something like this. The thing that's interesting, like I said, it has been since taken down. And then there's been some other ones out there. I think there was one called Dark Bard or something like that. But there's there today some people say, well, it's not really possible to have, a really good functioning variant because these AI chatbots really require a lot of essentially horsepower. They really require a lot of CPU chips and things like that. But we're seeing that as technology progresses, as hardware gets better, things get cheaper, we're starting to see that these types of variants are definitely a reality and something to really take note of. Again, it makes things faster and easier for these attackers to gain access into an organization and really do some damage really, really quickly. So like I said, we've seen some different versions of that. One thing I want to bring up in the news, and probably you've seen some, some news on maybe both of these as of recently, especially in the last week. I've been talking a lot about ChatGPT, but there's kind of a new contender in town called DeepSeek. The big difference between the two is one is US based, so ChatGPT is obviously US based. DeepSeek is actually out of China. The big thing that you're hearing on the news right now, and this goes to my statement earlier, is that it used to be thought that you had to have all of these big GPUs, these high performance clusters, running to really have a good working AI model, and it cost tens of millions of dollars in order to put something like this in place. What's making the news is this new program called DeepSeek, and basically they did it for just under $6 million, and they have a significantly and just more powerful, less expensive model of a Chat GPT like AI program, which is substantially, I mean, which is just dumbfounding to me. The fact that it moved that fast within the last just handful of years is amazing, and it's got everybody talking. And it goes back to the point of that this is kind of where things are moving to. It's the hardware. We're seeing that the software doesn't require a lot of this big hardware, and this is just a true testament to that fact. So it's just something to be aware of. A couple other pieces I want to drive home on this is, again, it's ChatGPT is by OpenAI. It's here in the United States. The DeepSeek variant of this is actually from China, so it is a foreign program. The thing about the usage of each of these is where it gets really interesting, and I would say concerning to some extent, where the ChatGPT model is just use-based, meaning that it's not open source. You're not going to get the ability to work with the source code at all. Where DeepSeek is actually open source, whether it's self-hosted or whether it's cloud. So what that means is that anybody can take this and they can use it for whatever they want. They can use it for good and implement it into their, into their business and, within their four walls. So it's all private. And then they can also use it for other types of acts, out there. So it's got a lot of people talking because we are really starting to see, again, that AI programs are starting to get, you don't need all the hardware, that's all part of that. So there's also privacy risks for each of those and things to be considered. Where's the data stored once it's inputted into those programs? What are we, who controls that data? Where's it go? Who can view it? All of that. So all of those are concerns and things that we need to be aware of. Now, ChatGPT and with NVIDIA and OpenAI, they are implementing basically what they're calling a private AI foundation, where companies, if they're starting to use these types of programs and they want to have their own private cloud, that is something that you can do. So if you're starting to use artificial intelligence into your business, a lot of businesses basically put a stop to people using things like ChatGPT because of those privacy concerns. Users being able to just upload any type of information, and then now it's all part of that, data set that can be referenced. That being said, there's a lot of advantages that companies have seen, and going and having your own private type of artificial intelligence is something that we are seeing in both models. And obviously, the one that is really appealing to a lot of people is what we're seeing over with OpenAI. So I want to ask a question: just as AI-powered cyber threats become more accessible and sophisticated, the question there is how can businesses adapt their cybersecurity strategies to stay ahead? The traditional defense, is it really going to be enough? Or do we need to really have a fundamental shift when it comes to approaching, cyber defense? So one of the things I want to bring up with everybody is that, there's talk about all these AI tools, which is great. There's talk about all these artificial intelligence tools for cybersecurity in order to protect a business. But I think we can get really lost in what's important. And one of the things that we do here at Grit, as well as um, any proficient IT organization is doing, is really, there's not an easy button when it comes to this stuff. There needs to be a systematic approach when it comes to protecting an organization. And there's not one piece of software, there's not one piece of hardware that's going to do it all for you. Luckily, we do have people that are a lot more intelligent, than we are, and have come out with frameworks that really do work. That allows us to put, not only tools in place, but processes and procedures, and look at cybersecurity as a whole, and just a full circle process in order to protect a business. If you're not familiar with it, there is a cybersecurity framework out of NIST, National Institute of Systems and Technology. So they basically have created a workflow, if you will, a framework in order to protect a business. I'm not going to go into all of it really, heavily, because we'll be here for a very long time. But you can Google this, and you can go out there and see what, is, what this is all about. There's actually a little bit of an updated version to this. But the main thing that every organization, when it comes to their IT and what they need to do, is they really need to follow the 5-step process. And it's a repeated process. You go through it once, you keep continually updating things as you move forward. The first really key thing that every organization, where we need to start, no matter if it's in regards to, physical security, cybersecurity, everything in your network security, we really need to identify what we have first. And that's why that's number one on the list. The big thing every organization needs to do is they need to have a proper process of IT documentation. They need to make sure that they're reviewing every single asset that the organization has. Everything from your laptops to your desktops to servers, other equipment, things like your switching and firewalls, wireless access points, even your printers, any type of security systems, door access controls. All of that is all part of that whole identify set, along with even your vendors, even your third-party vendors. Really documenting them, understanding what you guys have. The whole point of that is that you cannot protect anything in the organization if you don't know you have it. That's what it comes down to. So, and I already used that word protect, and that's why it's the second part. And once you have identified everything, then you can go in and you can look at where you can protect all this stuff. One of the things you need to put in there is things like multi-factor authentication, things like cybersecurity training for your employees, looking at data encryption, your firewalls, next gen antivirus, like endpoint detection, things, the access controls, patch management, email security, list goes on and on and on. Putting those things in place in order to really stop any type of nefarious acts coming into the organization. The third part and this is where a lot of businesses have been really starting to pay attention and putting some really strategic systems in place, is in the area of detection. You probably heard of things like dark web monitoring, where you're looking for credentials from an organization. If there's anything out there on the dark web, we're seeing people do that. Endpoint detection, or EDR. We're seeing organizations look at each endpoint, each laptop, each desktop, and deploying specific software to where it actually has some form of artificial intelligence built into it, where if something is trying to take over that PC, or some malware was injected, or there's some weird behavioral stuff going on, it's going to work to remediate those things in real time. So we're starting to see that type of stuff, as well as network monitoring, and the list goes on and on with that. After you looked at everything when it comes to identify how you're going to protect the business, how you can detect these things, you ultimately then can know how you can respond. And this is where incident response planning, looking at everything from a cyber, insurance type of having a cyber insurance, plan. What does that mean? What does it look like? What happens, and how fast things can respond. Looking at, even stuff when it comes to, public relations. What does that mean if something did happen with the organization? How can you guys respond to your vendors and your clients if something, did happen? And ultimately, the last part of that is, how do you recover? How fast can you recover from an incident? Once you have all of the first four in place, you should have a good understanding of, as far as what that recovery plan looks like. Be able to do testing and drills, test those backups, all of that type of stuff. And if something does happen, there needs to be a process in place of basically, what lessons do we learn in this, and how do we improve as we move forward? The big gap that we're seeing right now, and we've been a part of a lot of cybersecurity discussions in this last year, and some things that are really kind of coming into light, especially when we're talking about all this AI-driven cybercrime, is there is a security gap coming. And so one of the things that we've really seen, in just the traditional security, things like our firewalls and our antivirus and our patching and backups and stuff, a lot of this is still very much even though there's some automation built into this, we're still seeing it as a more manual process. It still takes people in order to, review these things, put these things in motion, get what we need in place, as when we need to. And ultimately, there's a gap between where traditionally things have always been in the IT side of things when it comes to cybersecurity, and ultimately where a business wants to be. And so, we call that cyber resiliency. Companies want to be proactive. They want that real-time detection. Instant response and rapid recovery is all things I think we all want. That's nobody doesn't want that. That's all things that we want. But we are starting to see issues where just the frequency and just the overall magnitude of these types of artificial intelligence attacks are bringing to organizations like small to mid-sized businesses. And the thing is just, it's so much that traditional systems are not really going to be able to really keep up with this. And just the fact also, just we're human and we have our own limits. And so one of the things that's become very apparent is that active monitoring, active real-time detection, response, recovery is really going to be needed. And I will be bold and say that this year, I really believe we're going to see a lot of strategic, artificially, these artificial intelligence programs, things like what we saw earlier, like Worm GPT and things like that. We're going to start to see other variants coming into play here, and it's going to cause a lot of havoc for a lot of people. So having the ability to really see things in real time is going to be very important. And one of the things that has really stuck out in this last year, and what we believe is a great solution, along with everything else. This is not the one key, this is not the one, thing that you need to protect your business. You need everything else. You need to have those proper processes and procedures in place. What we've seen though is that this what we've seen is rapid detection, rapid response. There's a new solution. It's been around for a while, and it goes by the name MDR, or also known as Managed Detection and Response. And what it really is basically it's helping bridge the gap when we're talking about these real-time type of threats. These things are happening so fast and instantaneous that we really need something to outside of just our own human capabilities, being able to monitor and protect us. So if you're not familiar with it, it's basically proactive threat hunting. So it basically uses AI power analytics to detect AI generated cyber attacks before they actually escalate. So basically looking for stuff that it might not even know exist. It's going to find something weird about some sort of action or some sort of foreign thing going on, and really start to investigate that in real time, which is pretty substantial, amazing. It's monitoring everything across your network. It's monitoring everything across your all user PCs. It's looking at things like your Office 365 accounts, all your email, your SharePoint stuff, Microsoft Teams, what have you, even Google, all of that. And there's a lot of different companies out there that are supplying solutions to that. We definitely have our preferred here at Grit, and if you want to know more about that, we could definitely have a conversation offline about that. But the big thing, which is great, is that it's really providing that real 24/7, monitoring and threat detection. It's really bridging the gap between traditional SIM and SOC models. And if you're not familiar with SIM SOC, uh, excuse me, what I will what I will tell you is that basically it's really two things. It's where you had a hardware that lived on the network, as well as a operations center that was also part of that, where if there was anything detected on the network, it would go to the operations center. And be reviewed if it was a false positive or was something that you needed to review. But basically, it moves past this to where it's not only things on the network. It looks at everything at basically a 10,000-foot view and sees if there's any type of malicious intent going across all of those different security vectors. And of course, it's AI powered, and it's really going to provide another level of service to everybody. So that's something I really encourage everybody to really start looking into, is that managed detection and response piece, because it's going to be crucial as we move forward. So starting your journey, what do you guys ultimately need to be looking at here? What I will tell you is that it starts going back to that piece of identify, really starting with an initial assessment, looking at, the key vulnerabilities, assessing, the current cybersecurity posture, review all of those assets, and really build a strategy and plan around what you guys have that aligns with your overall business goals and objectives. And of course, you want to make sure that you guys are continually educating yourself as you move forward and ensure that, nothing's being left at the wayside. One of the other things you really want to look into is obviously, implement, the proper firewalls, multi-factor authentication, you look at any type of automated threat detection, and ensure that you guys are maintaining proper security, monitoring and patching across all of your systems. If you guys got any compliances and stuff that you need to maintain and meet, you need to ensure that you guys are doing that. That's going to be a really critical thing as we move forward here in this next year. And of course, make sure that you guys are really not only educating yourselves on, the types of stuff that's happening out in the world, but making sure you're educating your peers. If you're not running any type of cybersecurity training where you guys are conducting simulated phishing attacks onto your organization, where you're testing your user base, you're really doing yourself a disservice, and you want to make sure that that is happening at least on a monthly basis. At least the simulated phishing portion of things, as well as ongoing training, whether it's a quarterly or yearly type of training for everybody. You want to ensure that they understand what these new threats look like, because it used to be you could detect a lot of this stuff. Nowadays, you really it's getting really hard to detect this stuff, and AI is really helping individuals, craft some really amazing emails. And I hate to give them credit, but it's at a point where we really make sure that we are actively training our user base, because that is some of the best education and best defense that you can do against these attacks. and obviously looking at your overall incident response plan and recovery, making sure that you guys have those if something does happen, if there is a breach or some sort of cyber issue that comes in, or there's an account that's compromised in some way, you guys know how to respond quickly and ultimately recover from that. And then of course, just backup and disaster recovery. Any of you guys, that are running, on-prem, servers, in ensuring that you guys have just the proper backups in place. Um, not just having backups, but obviously having, the ability to have local and as well as offsite image-based backups is going to be really important. And also detection of malware detection built into those systems. So, if you guys aren't familiar with how a lot of cyber attacks work, not only are they trying to cripple the business, but they're first really looking at to see what type of backup solution they have in place, because they will try to attack that as well, to ensure that there's no way for this organization to recover, and their only outlet is going to be to pay the ransom. So just make sure you are able to test everything. You guys are able to validate all of those backups and ensure that things are exactly where they need to be. And you guys, if something did happen, you guys would be able to recover instantaneously. So with that, if you've got any questions, about, what we've discussed here today, you can definitely reach out to us over here at, GritTex, it's www.grittex.com. If you guys want to, take the conversation further, we're definitely here for that. But I really appreciate, everybody's time, and just what we'll do right now is, if you have any questions, what I'd like to do is just open this up for any questions you guys might have. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and we'll open that up. All right. Well, I think let's make sure we have nothing coming in. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate everybody's time. If you have any other questions that you'd like us to discuss, after the fact, we'd definitely love for you to reach out to us. Again, my name is Matt with Grit Technologies. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for joining us.